ॐ सहनावतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। ॐ श्रीचिन्मय सद्गुरवे नमः। योगेन चित्तस्य पदेन वाचां मलं शरीरस्य च वैद्यकेन योपाकरोत्तं प्रवरं मुनीनां पतञ्जलि प्राञ्जलिरानतोऽस्मि। Hari Om. In the last session in Patanjali Yoga Darshanam, we were trying to see 9 sutras which were mainly focused on Antakarana or Chitta, and Chitta being the only thing that is a connecting link between all experiences of the visible world, the created universe, the reason and the cause for the pain and the sorrow that we have in our life. The aim is to cut asunder all that can lead to this modification of Chitta. Nothing needs to be annihilated. Nothing needs to be broken or destroyed. Everything can be where it is. All one needs is to act upon cutting the reaction to the link when it gets established between the Chitta, the mind. Mind is a loose word. Chitta is the precise word. Any connection that the Chitta tries to establish with the visible world, and that particular establishment leads to disturbances in Chitta called Vritti. Those Vrittis are our life. We breathe, we eat, we behave, we act, we cry, we smile. All these are secondary issues. The critical issue is perceiving the world around and cognizing it in a particular fashion. Perception per se is not a problem. Reaction to the perception, coloring or tinting the perception with our own emotions, thoughts, that is the variation which results in disturbing the pristine purity of the lake called Chitta, leading to formation of Vritti. And that is what Patanjali Maharaj from the first sutra wanted to tell us. In the Samadhi Pada, the first of the 4 padas, the first mantra, Patanjali Maharaj says, I am going to instruct you about the yoga, Atha Yoganushāsanam. And the very second sutra, he says, Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Yoga is nothing but to do nirodha of the vrittis that emanate in the substratum called Chitta. Tadadrushtuhu sarupe avasthanam. The one who has subdued these vrittis completely, a complete cessation of all the vrittis or the modifications or the changes that happen in the substratum called chitta from any reason. He is the one who is able to see his own nature or the self, verily described as Atman. So yoga chitta vritti nirodha tadadrushtu swarupe avasthanam. If that is not done, then vritti sarupyam itaratra. Otherwise, it is called a vritti. And vrittaya, panchataya, klishta, aklishta. There are 5 types of vrittis. It is a classification of a continuous endeavor of any individual when he is not in the yogi avastha of chitta vritti nirodha. He is into one of these 5. Those 5 vrittis we studied. Pramana viparyaya vikalpa smriti nidraha iti panchataya vrittihi. These are the 5 types of the vrittis. Because the vrittis need to be studied in detail, because unless we study the vrittis in detail, we cannot do the nirodham of the vrittis. Knowing the enemy well is one of the best counter strategy to annihilate the enemy. So study of vritti becomes a part of the practical approach, because the aim is to subdue the modification, nirodha of the vrittis. The first vritti, pramanam, is the vritti by which we receive the knowledge of surroundings, the knowledge that mind labels it as knowledge. Jnanam is of 2 types. One is laukika jnana. Laukika means it could be laukika, paralaukika, alaukika. Laukika, lokyate bhunjate iti lokaha. That which is experienced is called loka. Experiential knowledge is called laukika. And experiential knowledge itself means vritti jnana. That jnana which comes to us or which presents itself, that information which presents itself to us as jnanam, which is obtained through chitta or mind, is called experiential knowledge. And this is normally we have been calling it as a knowledge. A discovery of an atom or a molecule, it's something which is perceived by the senses, and that is why it is an experience and it is a vritti jnana. The absolute knowledge, the true knowledge, which normally the yoga refers to or the Advaita refers to, is the knowledge when this experiential knowledge is absent. That means there are 2 types of knowledge. One, when the chitta is in a kshobhita avastha, it is in a tossing condition or it is under modification. So modified chitta resulting into some quality of knowledge is called vritti jnana or experiential knowledge. And when chitta is completely subdued, no modification, and it is in its original state of pristine purity, then the knowledge that dawns upon us. Why do we call it as dawning upon us? It is also called as enlightenment, because enlightenment is not a procedure. Dawning of knowledge is not a procedure. It is a state of receiving the knowledge which is ever present. So under the Bodhi tree, what the Buddha received was the knowledge when he had subdued all the modifications of the chitta, all vrittis were subdued, and it dawned upon him the knowledge, the real knowledge. So once we know that there are 5 types of vrittis, pramanam is the type of a knowledge. So pramana can be of 3 types, as yoga believes in. We saw that. Pramana, anumana, agama. Iti pramanani. Pratyaksha, anumana, and Agama iti pramanani. That is the next sutra. These are three types of ways of deducing the knowledge in this world. Mind well, this knowledge is again a vritti, a modification. So pramana, when the same technique is used, but the knowledge obtained is not the right knowledge, it is called viparyaya. It is called viparyaya. So now the question here is, the viparyaya knowledge is the same knowledge as we obtain with the pramanas. The only difference between being viparyayo mithya attadrupa pratishtam. It is mithya false knowledge. I see a rope and I call it a snake. So it is a pratyaksha jnanam, but it is false knowledge. So it is mithya jnanam. And then we come to what is vikalpa, which is the ninth sutra, shabda jnana anupati vastushanno vikalpaha. Shabda jnana anupati, by the knowledge derived from the words, if we come to a conclusion of a vastu, of a thing which is not existing, it is called vikalpa. One of the finest example of vikalpa is the self or the atma tattvam is prakashaman. We say atma nitya shuddha buddha. When we say atma nitya shuddha buddha, it is also considered as a vikalpa. Why vikalpa? Because atma, if you call it shuddha, it presupposes that it is different than ashuddhata. The fact is, neither shuddhata nor ashuddhata is applicable to him. For our understanding, we may call atma tattvam as shuddha, shukram, asnavaram. All those adjectives, visheshanam, given to the atma are utterly useless because atma is visheshana rahita. Still we call it with visheshana for the sake of our understanding. That means we are trying to use a shabda to get the jnana of a vastu called atma, but such thing doesn't exist. So it is a vikalpa. So in other words, vikalpa means shashashrunga, like the hair of the horn of the hare, shashashrunga, or Vandhyaputra, son of a barren lady. You can use the word, but there is no vastu like son of a, because barren lady cannot beget a son. Similarly, Shabdajnana Anupati Vastushunyo Vikalpaha. These are the 9 sutras that we had seen, and we had come to the 10th sutra, which we had completed half of it. Abhava Pratyaya Alambana Vritti Nidra. Important thing to note is Pramanam, Viparyaya, and Vikalpa are little easy to understand because pramanam is every now and then we are trying to get this knowledge. Right now I am trying to speak something which your karnendriya is trying to receive, and by that you are trying to get some amount of knowledge by changing your chitta. So there is a process of knowledge transfer happening, which is by praman. Because right now I'm sitting here and whatever I'm speaking, you feel that that is right because I'm referring to a book. That means I'm referring to agama. So agama pramana you are accepting. So pramana is easy to understand. In case I start telling you that atma vinashi hai, sharir avinashi hai, that means I have used the same pramanam, but the knowledge now is false. Mithya jnanam. That is easy to understand. When I describe the qualities of atman, I'm using vikalpa. So these 3 are easy to understand. When it comes to nidra as a vritti, the common mistake we make, misapprehension that we have is that how can nidra be a vritti? In fact, everything stands still, is at standstill. No sense organs are working. I am not even aware of my sense organ working. Then in that case, how nidra can be the vritti? Because I or we generally feel that nidra, sushupti, is a state where all vrittis, gatras, as they call it, is at rest. But Yoga Shastra says, no, Nidra is a type of vritti. What does it mean? It means if Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha, that means I have to also overcome sleep, which is a type of vritti. So that means overcoming the sleep is by not sleeping. That is called nidra nash. Nidra nash is a rogue. It is a disease. No. A yogi, when he is in accomplished state called samadhi, even nidra doesn't touch him. If that is the case, then why nidra is considered as vritti? Second thing is how we can think in terms of even doing the nirodha of nidra. All vrittis are to be arrested. All modifications of the chitta are to be arrested. So pramanam, okay, I shall not interact with the objects of the universe. Even if I interact with the objects, I shall not let them impact me or affect me, so that no response is initiated, no reaction is given. Understood? This is a part of sadhana because we are trying to reduce the vrittis. The question is, what do I do with the sleep? Do I stop sleeping because I don't want that vritti? Because yoga chitta vritti nirodha. So that is where it brings us to the little deeper discussion of vritti. That is why some of them have even objected that nidra is not a vritti. And we saw those objections, why they are there. The very fact why nidra is a vritti is the commentators of Patanjali Yoga Darshana. We did see that in the first session. Vyasa Muni Maharaj. Now this Vyasa Muni is different than the Vyasa Karata, Mahabharata Karta Vyasa. This Vyasa Muni was there in 2nd century. He has written Vyasa Bhashyam on Patanjali Yoga Sutra, and the another good commentary is coming from Vachaspati Mishra, who wrote Tattva Vaisharadi on Patanjali Yoga Sutra. Now, if we look at both of them, they have explained how this nidra is a vritti and why it needs to be arrested or why it needs to be nirodha should be done of that. The explanation given there is the very fact that when I get up from my sleep, I do comment about the quality of the sleep. We are going to come to the qualities of sleep, and we are going to study sleep a little bit in detail because that is the most neglected part of the health and hygiene even today. And when we say health and hygiene, we have to keep sthula shariram into sudrudha avastha, sudrudha, stable condition. And stable condition, we all take care of our diseases that are like infection and all we can get, but we pay very less attention to the sleep or the nidra. So we are trying to study nidra a bit in detail, taking a little bit of science of sleep, which is available to the medicine as of date, which is again related to a bit of neuroscience, as well as nidra, the way the yogis look at it. So one of the most critical point of nidra is I do remember the quality of sleep when I get up and I comment about it. I either say that, oh, what a sleep I had, or I say it was not a good sleep, or I say, I don't know, my sleep is not complete. I feel like again sleeping, the body has become very heavy. 3 comments we see. More than 3 comments don't come about the sleep. 1, I couldn't sleep. Raat bhar neend nahi aaya. It was a very bad sleep. Second, oh, what a sleep I had. And the third is, I had the sleep, but somehow the sleep is not complete. I'm feeling still tired. I want to continue with the sleep. Uthne ka man nahi kar raha hai. I don't want to get up from my sleep. These are the 3 comments that we get normally on the sleep. So before understanding the sleep and its nature, for a very long time, medicine or the neuroscience itself had no idea what the sleep was. All guesswork was done. However, and the guesswork was very simple. You sleep, and in the sleep, you dream or you don't dream. Other than that, not much knowledge of sleep was there. And even today, although very small percentage of knowledge has come about the sleep, even today, the medicine, the science of medicine does not know why we need sleep. What happens if we are deprived of the sleep for a continuous period? The experiments have been done. In fact, now there are departments of sleep as a science in most of the medical universities for the research purpose as well as for the therapeutic purpose. But the sleep, why it is needed, it is still an enigma. It is still a mystery for most of the medicine. Only when the electroencephalogram was invented That was the first time they realized that, oh, it is not that in the sleep the brain is not working, because earlier it was that the brain is not working in sleep. They realized that the brain is working in the sleep. In fact, sometimes it works more than the awakened state. That is why the breakthrough came at the electroencephalogram invention level, where they realized that there are patterns in the sleep, and based on analysis of many people in their sleep state, a science of sleep was developed, and then they come out with the types of sleep. So for the first time, the sleep got classified. So we have three types of sleep patterns. There is something called waking sleep. It sounds oxymoron. Waking sleep. What is waking sleep? Waking sleep is a time when you are about to sleep, but you are not asleep. Are you awake? You are, and you are not. It is a sandhi kalam between going to the bed and actually sleeping. So you have a status called waking sleep. Now, does that happen only when you go to the bed? No, it does happen even in the sleep in between also. So we have periods in the sleep where we come up from the deep abyss of sleep, almost touching the wakefulness and again going down. So we have a waking state. Then there is a sleep called rapid eye movement sleep. That's a sleep when the eyes keep moving with a rapid fashion. We have closed our eyelids, but the eyes are moving. That's called a rapid eye movement. And then there is a sleep called non-rapid eye movements. That means the eyes are also not moving. Generally, it is observed that in the sleep, the body temperature is down, heart rate goes down, breathing rate goes down, and the use of energy goes down. Now, it's very surprising that we are not aware that in the waking state, 20% of our energy of the body is used by brain alone. Thinking consumes energy. That's why people always say, I'm tired. Person goes, he's a sedentary worker, goes to the office and sits into the chair and comes back home sitting in the car. There is not much of a muscle activity, yet he feels tired. Why? Because in the waking state, this organ, which is barely 4.5 pounds, basically maximum in weight, almost to the size of two fists together, consumes 20% of the energy. This consumption of energy in the sleep is found to be very less. At the same time, we have seen that there are synapses in the brain. Every single thought is a lightning, as if the lightning has struck inside a synapse, a neurotic synapse is formed. And we saw that if you start counting the synapses one per second, it will take 300 million years to count. Those many synapses are there because it has got 92 billion neurons. Those firing of neurons is happening at every single moment. When you look here, there, every time the sense organ is there, even the smriti is there, they're continuously firing. It is only the yogi who has ability to stop the firing of neurons. Why? Because every time there is a neurotic snapping happening, there is a chemical called acetylcholine released into the brain. That chemical is found to be at its lowest during the sleep. So when we sleep, we have a wakeful state. Then we go into what is called as rapid eye movement sleep. Then we go into what is called as non-rapid eye movement sleep. And again, the pattern changes. So this is like up and down and up and down. So it's not a continuous sleep as we assume. That is why we may sleep for 8 hours, but the quality sleep is non-rapid eye movement sleep, could be barely 1 hour. Luckily, these days, even watches like the Apple Watch can analyze the deep sleep. It is easy to analyze the deep sleep nowadays because the instruments are available. So when we sleep, we have this rapid eye movement and non-rapid eye movement sleep. Now, what happens, why we are going into the technical details is, our main purpose is to find out where are the vrittis in the sleep. Now, dreaming, when it happens, there are many dreams which we don't remember, but every day there is a dreaming. That dreaming happens in that rapid eye movement. They are vivid dreams, and usually these dreams are remembered, and there are series of dreams one after the other. Because the dream is a situation like an awakened state or a jagrut avastha, with little bit of difference in them, we will see that. But the fact is that it has the same amount of bearing on thought process or the modifications of buddhi the way we have it in awakened state. That is why Swami Vivekananda in his commentary of this Yoga Shastra says, dream is nothing else but what we call thought in the awakened state. So, dream is precisely like the memory of a thought in the awakened state. That is what his comment is. What it means is, we are constantly in a process of having the almost a Jagrut Avastha in the Nidra Avastha if it is not a deep sleep. So that is how we have these three states through which the sleep slowly starts moving from one state to the other state. So we have this, sometimes it is happening as non-rapid eye movement, sometimes as a rapid eye movement, and it is observed that during the non-rapid eye movement sleep or deep sleep, consolidation of memory takes place. All our smriti is consolidated during the process of non-rapid eye movement. Why this is critical for us from the point of vritti? Every samskara that we have, matra sparshestu kanteya, whatever has happened outside because of the combination or touching of the indriyas with that, and that has created some amount of samskar or a reaction in our mind called experience, it is consolidated into the brain. That is what precisely the Advaita has been telling, Bhagavad Gita has been telling, but the medicine also confirms it, that the consolidation of memory happens during that period. So samskara gets consolidated. Now imagine on the first of the month, I had one samskara, on the second again I had second, and third I have. So what happens, the same amount of experience, when it is again and again consolidated, that consolidated experience becomes the habit. Because the brain is acquainted to that experience. So while consolidating the memory, the brain says that, yes, I already have it with me. So if there is an ease of recollection, more the experience of the same thing, more is consolidation of memory, more easy is the recall. And more easy the recall, more preponderant is the recall, more powerful is the recall. And that is how the person creates an habit. So what happens, early in the morning, I say, I desperately need a cup of tea. Why desperately need a cup of tea? Because cup of tea came in the morning. I get cup of tea in the morning. That leads to my happiness, is an experience that gets grooved, consolidated. When I sleep, one after the other day, bachpan, say from childhood, I've been drinking. So now it has become my habit to an extent that the body also starts reacting to the habit. That is why people cannot go to the bathroom unless they have a cup of tea or the cigarette. The addiction of cigarette, if we analyze, there's a lot of philosophy into it. Every single cigarette has created, of course, the chemical nicotine has an effect also, because it helps in consolidating, because it fires a single neuron of that type. Now the question here is, if the nidra has to be there, if the nidra or the sleep is devoid of all the dreams, if it is devoid of all the dreams, then it will be only deep sleep. When you have only deep sleep, as it is, nobody can have deep sleep more than 3 hours, 2 hours, and that is enough. Now another invention has come forward, the discovery has come forward, that now it has been told in last 20 years that during sleep, all the dead products that are formed because of synaptic firing, including the dead cells of the brain, are cleaned up during this process through a system called limbic, through a system called cerebrospinal fluid clearance. We have cavity inside the brain, which ultimately communicates with the spinal cord. So that cavity is lined by the hairy things called cilia. They keep propelling the fluid and they clear that during the deep sleep process. Now, more the byproduct, you need more the sleep for clearance, and more the byproduct means more the thinking, and more the thinking means you are more interacting with these pramana, viparyaya, and vikalpa and smriti. This, if you keep doing, always remembering something, always thinking of future, always thinking of past, always thinking of present, interacting with things, having new objects, enjoying the new food, this all leads to lot of kachara. The dirt accumulates. So that is how sleep is more needed there. While for a yogi, and whenever I'm saying a yogi, keep Gurudeva in front of you. All the actions were done, but none of them led to formation of those habits of the type we form. So there being a very little thing to clear in the mind, the sleep of Gurudeva was a yogi's sleep, barely for an hour or two, enough to recharge. Why? There is not much of a dirt to be cleared. Now comes the question. There are three types of nidras that we are aware of. The Yoga Shastra has analyzed the sleep 3000 years back. At the Patanjali also says, I'm a Sutra Karta, so it must be before that. There was a Rishi called Hiranyagarbha who wrote these sutras. Maybe he was before him. But the gist of the matter is the classification that is done now, which calls up 3-4 different types of waves called beta waves, alpha waves, theta waves, and delta waves. These delta waves are the waves which are there when you are in the deep sleep. They are prolonged, low frequency waves. So delta waves are produced when mother sings the lullabies to the baby. These delta waves are the waves which indicate that you are in deep sleep. So that means there is a delta wave which gives you deep sleep. There is a theta waves which is kind of okay sleep, and there are alpha waves and beta waves which are not giving you good sleep. This is as far as science is concerned. Let me juxtapose this with the Yoga Shastra. If you look at the commentary on Patanjali Yoga Sutra of this particular Abhava Pratyaya Alambana Nidra, on the comment of Vyasa Bhashyam as well as Tattva Vaisharadi Bhashyam by Vachaspati Mishraji, then you will realize they have given three types of nidras. The first type is called Sukham Aham Swapsyam. What it means? Prasanna me manaha. I am happy with my sleep. I am feeling very, very refreshed. That sleep is called Sattva Guna Bharit Nidra. Nidra is Tamoguna, that we all know now. By now we know that inertia, sleep, jadatva, procrastination, laziness, all this is Tamoguna. Tamoguna Adhikansha is sleep. That we also know. But while Tamoguna is there, we have always seen that no state is single guna state. There is a pradurbhava of a single guna. So in sleep, there is predominance of Tamoguna and Sattva Raja are in a smaller quantum. In other words, when Sattva Guna is suppressed, when Rajoguna is suppressed, and Tamoguna is in a preponderance, we get sleep, we feel sleepy. But while this suppression of Sattva Guna is not very much, in the sense that it is suppressed, but it is still present in good quantity, it becomes a Sattva Guna Bharita Nidra. And what is the statement we make after this sleep? Sukham aham swapyam prasanna me manaha. My mind is very, very fresh. When it is predominated, Tamoguna is there, but predominated by Raja instead of Sattva, it is called Rajoguna Bharita Nidra. And what is the comment we make? Dukkham aham swapyam. I was sleepy, but I was not very happy. Neend achhi nahi hai. Styanam me manaha. Styanam is what? Neend theek nahi hui. Styan is fatigue, something not good. Then the third thing is when Sattva Raja is almost absent, very, very little, and almost tamoguna is predominating. It is called tamoguna bharita nidra. And what is the statement we make? Mudoham swapyam. Guruni me gatrani. Guru means big, heavy. Guru. The Jupiter is called Guru because he is a heavy planet. Guru me gatrani. Gatrani means indriya. In fact, we use the same word to describe. बड़ा भारी लग रहा है, शरीर बड़ा भारी लग रहा है, शरीर भारी लग रहा है. So the body is feeling very heavy, not complete. I feel like sleeping more. Can I have little more sleep? That is tamoguna bharita nidra. Now we know very clearly that three gunas are playing their game in the nidra also. That is why there is a vritti in nidra. There is a vritti in nidra. But the definition, what it says in Yoga Sutra, abhava pratyaya alambana nidra. Abhava pratyaya. Alambana means holding. We saw that. So nidra is what? A state of chitta which holds to abhava pratyaya. Abhava, kiska abhava? Abhava of jagruta swapna kalikasya jnanasya tasya pratyaya. Jagruta swapna kalaka abhava. That is what is the nidra. The karana guna is tamo guna. Its alambana is tamo guna alambana. So tamo guna alambanam iti nidraha. So far, nidra we saw that it is a state in which three different types of experiences has come. Now the question is, in a nidra or swapna avastha, dreams that we get in the sleep, and there is some sleep also, in both the avasthas, vrittis are alive, kicking. The remembrance of the vrittis, vritti may be less. There may be dream which we may not remember, but that doesn't mean that the dream was not there. That is the reason why in the dream itself, we suffer. In the sleep itself, we may feel happy or suffer. So that means those vrittis are to be reduced. Now, one can understand, when I'm awake, I will perhaps arrest my vritti. I will not see somewhere. I will try to concentrate my mind away from the distracting things. What do I do in the sleep? I myself may not my control. So what do I do in my sleep? And that is where the vritti arrest in sleep, the technique comes into the picture. Whatever we do into jagruta avastha ultimately leads to whatever happens in swapna avastha and sushupti avastha. That means if chitta shuddhata karyam is on during the jagruta avastha, the sleep also becomes of a better quality, less vritti is there. That is why we say, be honest and be truthful, neend achhi aayegi. Isn't it that we say on day-to-day things that, apna kaam kar lo, phir to dekho kharrate maar ke so jaoge. You try to deprive somebody of something, try to be fraudster to somebody, and then, the tossing, the guilt of the mind, etc. will disturb your sleep. Sukh ki neend, chain ki neend so jaye. That is what we say. What it means is, the actions done during the awakened state have a bearing on the unawakened state of dream or sleep. So that means both are nothing else but the mirror images. The tossing, if you have more in your life, in your jagruta avastha, you will have more tossing in your sushupti and swapna avastha. In fact, if somebody is into the higher echelons of sadhana, is becoming more pure and pure, his thoughts are constantly on God realization. So what happens? He also gets the dreams, but those dreams are called as Deva Swapna. In the dream itself, you feel there is a white flower. I pluck the flower and put it at the feet of Guru Deva. All those kind of sleep, the dreams come into the picture. What are the dreams that other people get? There was an exam and I reached late. I slept off and got up and realized same cacophony of what is happening in the Jagruta Avastha. The fear into the Jagruta Avastha, there is a fear in the Swapnavastha. That is why in Tattva Vaisharadi, Mishra, Vachaspati Mishra, one of the most enlightened person who was the master of all the Shaddarshanas, he was known as Sarvatantra Swatantra. Sarvatantra Swatantra means master of all the aspects of philosophy. He was Nyaya Visharada, he was Vaisheshika Visharada, he was Yoga Visharada, Sankhya Visharada, Purva Mimamsa Visharada, he was Uttar Mimamsa Visharada. He was in Mithila, a Maithili Brahmin, Vachaspati Mishra. He has written about the Nidra as Ekagratulya api tamasatvena Nidra. Ekagrata, Ekagratulya api. Like a samadhi, the sleep is close. Ekagratulya api tamasatvena Nidra. Sabija nirimija samadhi patipaksheti sa epi nirodhave iti arthaha. What he means is, though apparently the sleep looks similar to Sabija and Nirbija Samadhi, we are going to see in detail, absolute detail when we go further about Samadhi. So, Ekagrata in the sleep and in the Samadhi, though it appears similar to us, it is a Vritti while Samadhi is not the Vritti. So, we need to consciously do the Nirodha of Nidra Vritti also. Now, there is also a small logical corollary to this discussion. We all try to get up early in the morning, Brahma Muhurta, reduce our sleep. Why? Because yogis have less sleep, so I will also have less sleep. But the reason why you are not able to control your sleep is because you are not acting like a yogi, you are not working like a yogi. Having all the paraphernalia in the daytime and getting involved into all the things that are happening around. So that means pramana viparya vikalpa is continuously going on and stuti is going on, and you want nidra to be of the yogi, it cannot happen. 5 vrittis, all the work has to be done on each of the vrittis. So moment of somebody is doing progress in the sadhana, the parameter of progress in sadhana is automatically you start getting less sleep. Why less sleep? Because there is very little to clear up. He always remains more cheerful. Why? That less sleep also is a quality sleep. So he is always fresh. He is never under the influence of tamoguna. What is tamoguna? Gone for the satsang, but it is like this. This is not the case with the yogi. Why? He is always cheerful. How was the vocal cord, the sound, the voice of Gurudeva? Sharp, penetrating like a bomb. It is to come and come on the ears and straight away penetrate inside the brain. Why? That power behind the voice was because of the freshness of the man and the body both. Why? It was refreshed with 1 or 2 hours of sleep. So that is how sleep is the next important and the most important aspect that we need to see. Now comes the question. So once this nidra is there, the question comes, what is yoga nidra? Yoga nidra, the yogis are able to, now let us see the parallels between nidra and jagruti. In jagruti, you are aware of whatever is happening to you. In fact, you succumb to whatever is happening to you. So the mind is constantly in this, in that, in this, in that. It is a constantly moving kshipta, vikshipta, kshipta, vikshipta, mana, mudha. That is the swoon. That is the state of the mind. Now imagine a yogi has controlled the vrittis. Now when the sense organs are not interacting with outside, all the 5 sense organs are as good as dead or sleeping. Right? It is as good as dead or sleeping. And the yogi is not concentrating anywhere on a specific focus. So he's not going into samadhi also. So we have a state where senses are closed. The mind is focused only on one thing, either Vishnu, Narayana, Murti, whatever it is, whichever pratik we have. Then what happens in that meditation? He goes into samadhi of that Murti. We call it as a Sabija Samadhi. Or even that Murti is also not there. There is nothing, a specific focus to concentrate, only concentration concentration, nirbija samadhi, nirvikalpa samadhi, asampradnyat samadhi. That is the word used in Yoga Shastra. Now that we know, so that means there is one state called samadhi, one state called fully involved into the senses. Imagine a state which is not fully involved into the senses and not fully involved into samadhi. That is called yoga nidra. A yoga nidra means the person is sitting in his posture, all the senses are cut off. That means the world is cut off, the senses are completely quietened, and the yogi just sitting like a live corpse and looking everywhere. So what is happening? There is nothing to be absorbed into the brain, into the mind, into the chitta. So chitta has been subdued. Nidra hasn't taken over. Recall of smriti is also not done. Pramana, viparya, vikalpa are completely absent because sense organs are not interacting. That particular situation is called yoga nidra, a state between wakefulness and sleep. One of the disciples of Shivananda Maharaj, our own Gurudeva's Guru Bandhu, specialized in this particular yoga nidra. His name was Satyananda Saraswati. So Satyananda Maharaj is no more there. His disciple is there who practices this nidra. And then while this nidra is done, in this nidra, because no vrittis are there and no samadhi is there, it is in between that. So this is the time when the nyasa is done. Nyasa is you do different positions of your fingers and touch certain parts of your body where you transfer the divinity. There are techniques of doing these things, and that is why different mudras are used, and then they are touched to the body during this yoga nidra state. Now we have in our mind doubts about can there be a yoga nidra. A lot of study has been done in America. The moment we say America, we start believing in it. Surprisingly, the Surgeon General of US Army has officially sanctioned this technique of yoga nidra. It's not a pure yoga nidra because it is not easy to get trainers for that, but some people have trained themselves or tried to train themselves, and to a limited extent they have used it successfully for the amelioration of pain that you get, psychological pain. So it has been approved as a complementary medicine for pain by none else than Surgeon General of US Army. That is about the yoga nidra. After the yoga nidra and the nidra as a vritti, we come to the 11th and the last mantra, last sutra of the Panchavrittis, which is Smriti. Anubhuta Vishaya Asamproshaha Smritihi. That is the Vakhya. The sutra says Anubhuta Vishaya Asampromosha Smritihi. Anubhuta means what? Experienced. Anubhuta is experienced. Vishaya, subject, a thing. The key word is asampramosha, and that is made up of upasargas sam, pra, and mosh. Sam, pra, these are upasargas. Mosh is the dhatu. What is mosh? Mosh means to rob. We all know mushaka. The rat is called mushaka. Why? It robs. Mosh. So asampramosha means what? A means not. Sam means completely. Pra means thoroughly. Prakarshayana, thoroughly. So not completely or thoroughly robbed. What is not completely or thoroughly robbed? Anubhuta Vishaya, the subject that is experienced. That means Smriti is a vritti where it does not undergo complete deprivation of experience things. That means whatever we experience, that experience, if it stays, if it is not robbed by, who robs the experience? Kalam. When we say याद नहीं आ रहा है, I'm not remembering. I'm not remembering means what? It got wiped off by the time. We always say kala hai tasmai nama. Wait, with time the wounds will heal. Heal means what? You will forget. When such forgetting doesn't happen, asampramosha, anubhuta vishaya, if it is asampramosha, if it is not robbed away by the time, it is called smruti. See, it's a very peculiar definition of smruti by Patanjali Maharaj, because it entails certain other things. And what are the other things that is entailing? The things that are entailing is anubhuta vishaya. Anything that is experienced is likely to be remembered. A very, very critical link in vritti. See, pramana, viparyaya, vikalpa, nidra, these are still kind of things which we can study and handle. Smruti is very difficult to handle. Why? Smruti is that ghost which is formed from the experience, which never leaves you. And that is why माँ की याद आई, बेटी की याद आई, how I was insulted, I remembered. And these things, without anything happening around us, what happens? We feel sad. That is the reason why Bhagavad Gita is saying, right at the beginning of Sankhya Yoga, Bhagavan says, Gata sun, agata suncha, nanu shochiti panditaha. But we are not pandita, we are murkha. Gata sun shochati murkha. We always keep reminiscing in the past. And it's not always a pleasant thing. There are very hardly any pleasant things in the past. We all know our past. It's all full of dirt. But still we keep remembering it. And that is why such a vritti, the reason why it is a more important or a difficult enemy to deal with is because this enemy is available 24/7 with me, because it is residing inside my head. I may be sitting in the pristine peaks of Himalayas with no world around, nobody around me. I'm in a cave, all alone to myself. Ideally speaking, that I should be enjoying the solitude. But instead, what do? Sitting there in the Himalayas also, I can think of the whole world, because the world is here inside my mind. And how does the world come back to me? Through smruti. The ghost of memory is the biggest ghost that plagues a sadhaka, because we get involved into the memory. So anubhuta vishaya, that means it's very simple. How many ghosts you will have? Lesser the experiences, lesser the number of ghosts. That is why thinking patterns are very clear and simple if you go to the villages or the tribal areas. Why? Less experience, less smruti, less complications in the mind, less reaction to the smrutis, no psychological diseases. They evolved of the Western world called scientific world. What is the classical characteristic? Every second or third person is suffering from psychological diseases. Why? Smruti. That which is experienced is brought back into the distorted form, and we keep brooding on it. If at all a memory is recalled, because memory has its importance. Tomorrow, if I want to have my food, I must remember that this is my food because I had eaten it earlier. So that experience comes to my help. Because I ate some spicy thing and it was burning inside my mouth, I will not touch it again. So memory has some important, very essential, bare minimum things. But when what I have experienced comes in front of me and occupies my present thinking to an extent that it is hampering my present state of working, we immediately pick up that person and take him to the psychiatrist. So smruti as a vritti is a very, very critical thing that we need to understand. We shall definitely see in detail what the vritti means. This particular smruti as a vritti, a memory, we need to spend a little more time on it, because smruti requires a little bit of philosophical understanding also. And all this mind well is only for the purpose because vrittis are to be arrested. We don't want smruti. We don't want nidra. We don't want pramana. We don't want viparyaya. We don't want vikalpa. All five are gone. We are yogi. We are basking into those five now. The percentage varies from person to person. Somebody is busy in pramana. A scientist, he says, I'm not sleeping also because I'm researching on something. Why? So nidra is less there. Nidra as a vritti doesn't affect him. He is affected by pramanam. I'm doing experiments. Doing experiments is what? Again, experiential knowledge. Again, it is pramana, because he wants to have pratyaksha pramana. That is why he's experimenting there. Viparya. Viparya, the brahmadhyana. Some people are involved in that. Vikalpa, some people are involved in vikalpa. Verbal delusion, as Vivekananda Maharaj calls it. Nidra. Some people are spending more than half of their life in nidra. Why? Tamo guna adhikya. Tamo guna adhikya. And we take pride also. And nobody can sleep like me. I sleep like a log. So you say you are sleeping like a log, but you don't require a log-like sleep. You need to be log only for a small period. If you're having much more log-like status, you are actually becoming a log. So that is why, amongst all this, the one that really needs to be thought of seriously and analyzed is Nidra and Smriti. Nidra again has bearing with wakeful state, Jagruta Avastha. But Smriti is something which is 24/7 available with me right here on my Karatala. On the palm of my hand, Smriti is available because I can recall anytime. Look at, you are waiting in front of an ICU because your wife is delivering, right? What is happening then? You start remembering. When my sister got delivered, she had this problem. So what will happen? My mother was telling, again, Smriti. Constantly, our mind is always falling back into the past or thinking about the future. Anxiety of the future and reminiscing in the past is a constant preoccupation of mind. That is why we are very, very little in the present. We are keen on making our present a past or a future. And that is the reason why we never leave for the moment. So we will definitely go into the further details of what is called as Smriti a bit in detail, because all these vrittis are later on to be controlled as we start seeing going towards this samadhi state, etc. We need all these vrittis and their analytical approach. So we will see details of Smriti into the next session. But before closing down, there was a question asked about Vismayo Yoga Bhumika. A question was asked that how do you reconcile Patanjali Yoga Shastra with Vismaya Yoga Bhumika? Vismaya Yoga Bhumika is a sutra from Shiva Sutra. Now we all know that there are different books dealing with yogas. Patanjali is Ashtanga Yoga Darshana. Patanjali Yoga Darshanam is one book. Then there are books on Hatha Yoga also. Then there is a Yoga Vashishta also. Similarly, Shiva Tantra or Shiva Sutra, Kashmiri Shaivism, Kularnava Tantra, Kaula, these are different names where Tantric Agama, Tantric scriptures are there about yoga, and there is no difference between that yoga and this yoga. It is the same yoga. The way of narration is different. So Shiva Sutra was written sometimes in 9th century by a sage called Vasugupta. In fact, Bhagwan Shiva himself appeared in his dream, and that is how he wrote those 77 sutras. Like Patanjali Yoga Sutra, he wrote 77 sutra. And mind well, it is far more difficult a grantha than Patanjali Yoga Sutra. Not that Patanjali Yoga Sutra is easy. The reason why I say so is because it is a sutra, it is such a tight aphorism that to make the meaning out of it is not very easy. The 77 sutras are divided into Shambhavopaya, Shaktopaya, and Anuvopaya. The way of Shiva, way of Shakta is competent one, and the fine way, Anuvopaya, very fine way. It is full of mystical doctrines. When I say mystical, it requires a lot of explanation. For example, one sutra is there in Shiva Sutra, written in 8th century. Shakti Chakra Sandhane Vishwa Samvaraha. Now, how will you interpret this? Shakti Chakra Sandhane Vishwa Samvaraha. it took 1000 years for the science to understand is that two atomic nuclei, if you do the fusion, the energy released will be more than enough to destroy the earth. Now, is it possible for us to imagine 1000 years back it existed as Shakti Chakra Sandhane Vishwa Samvaraha? And is this the limited meaning of this sutra or something more to it? So each sutra of Shiva Sutra will require a couple of hours of explanation to know what is it. That is why Shiva Sutra is not so popular like Patanjali Yoga Sutra, because Patanjali Maharaj has brought it to the level of our understanding. Shiva Sutra is far at a much higher level. So one of the sutra there is Vismayo Yoga Bhumika. Vismayo Yoga Bhumika. What it means is whenever you arrive in yoga, there is Vismaya. Now, Vismaya and Ascharya, these are two different things. Ascharya means, oh my God, 2 atoms of hydrogen and 1 of oxygen is becoming a hydrogen oxide, that is water. H2O becomes water. This is Ascharya. Vismaya is different. Vismaya is when the mind is raised to a level where the vrittis start subsiding, then you start getting the experience of certain things which could never imagine. It's a realm where the mind starts experiencing something which it had never experienced earlier, simply because the vrittis are absent. So the outside world is disconnected and the inner world journey starts, and that is that surprise that emanates is called Vismaya. In Bhakti Shastra, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to think of Lord Krishna and used to be very close in terms of things, suddenly he used to go to Vismaya Avastha with horripilation. The hairs used to be raised and stand. There was a Kampayamana Avastha, trembling with love and affection for Lord Krishna. So there is Vismaya Avastha. So each stage that you go forward in yoga, accomplishment of yoga, there is Vismaya, a kind of a surprise, a kind of a newness that one experiences. Vismayo Yoga Bhumika. And that comes when we are going to study the stages of Samadhi. That is where you will have those Yoga Bhumikas coming. In fact, the third pada of Patanjali Yoga Sutra throws more light on this. So, it is better to start with Patanjali Yoga Sutra. Shiva Sutra is something which requires a good amount of concentration to know what it is, and preferably at the hands of a competent guru, one should try to listen to the Shiva Sutras to at least have intellectual absorption of what is given in the Shiva Sutras. So far we have finished the Nidra. We have just opened up the topic called Smriti, and then we are going to see details about the Smriti, the last Vritti, in next session. Hari Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.
Sanjay ji, I have a clarification on Nidra. So you talked about REM and non-REM. So point one is the REM period needed from a Shastriya or medical perspective? Does it serve a purpose? So non-REM serves a purpose of cleansing the mind of the chemicals. But do we need the REM period, one? And two, are we ultimately going towards a stage where we are saying we need less and less of sleep? So by living a certain lifestyle and not having certain experiences, so the ultimate goal is that you become as refreshed with much lesser sleep. That's the ultimate goal. Okay.
REM Nidra, REM sleep is a sleep where there is a good amount of muscular paralysis. Simply because if the muscles are active during REM sleep, then you may injure yourself in the dream. If you act during the dream, we act. Sometimes we suddenly get up, we shout. All those things could be intolerable. So God has made an arrangement that during REM sleep, there is a muscle paralysis or muscles are with a very low tone. Second is REM sleep is very high activity sleep. High activity to the extent that it consumes more energy than when you're awake. That is the reason when REM is more, when you get up, you say that, neend theek nahi hui. You feel more tired because more consumption of energy is there. Second thing is REM is dominated by beta and gamma waves. Now, what is this beta and gamma waves? This is where the learning is enacted. Whatever you have learned is enacted here during the day. It is like you are reliving what you have learned. Now, imagine a new skill you have learned. Nothing that your senses interact with the universe goes waste. It is retained inside. It is enacted because you want to retain it. This learning enactment happens in REM sleep. Now, when the yogi doesn't interact with the rest of the world because he has no problem with whatever is lying there, he has not reacted to that. So there is no learning required for him. That is why his REM sleep is very less. All he has is almost an NREM sleep, which is called deep sleep. For an hour is more than enough. Even today, as an example, I can quote my own example. I do track my sleep. Majority of the times in last 2-3 years, the deep sleep is not more than 2 hours. So, and that 2 hours is more than enough. So it is always between 1.5 to 2 hours. Maximum is 2.5 hours, which is deep sleep, refreshing sleep. But total quantity of number of hours, 7 hours, 8 hours. That means the NREM component is very important. REM component is very fatiguing. So that is why when do you require less that? REM has a function to perform, and function is enactment of learning. So if the learning itself is less, that means interaction, matra sparshastu konteya, if it is less, REM sleep will also be less, and then with less sleep you will be fresh. Don't try to borrow too many things from this universe. They will be a burden for you inside your head. That is the gist of the whole thing.
Thank you.
Hello. Hello.
Go ahead, Suresh.
I have a question. Generally, we use a term called subconscious mind, and it is believed that when you are sleeping or when you are in sleep, the subconscious mind can peep into the future and give you some symbolic, incidences in the dream, which you can relate to what happens to you maybe in future. For example, if you are appearing for an exam and you want to fail in that exam, you see a dream where you go to the station and you miss the train. So, it's something which is intriguing and not very easy to understand. So number one, is subconscious mind really does that, or is it just a kind of mirage?
Subconscious mind, which is commonly referred in neuroscience also, or generally our discussion, subconscious mind is only when the mind is at its full rest. Then the consciousness that appears at the time when the mind is at full rest is called consciousness, or it is referred by us as subconscious mind. In fact, from the Shastra point of view, there is nothing called subconscious mind. Mind is always conscious. The question is whether mind is predominating as a Jiva Tattva or consciousness is predominating. That is what is more important. When the activity of mind is at its lowest, then the consciousness starts predominating. Now, there is a state which is normally, we suffer a state where mind is not completely at rest. At the same time, consciousness is not completely at work. So in that particular Sandhi Kalam, that consciousness which is working on the minimal mind is called subconscious mind. Mind's powers are limited, consciousness powers are unlimited because it is power itself, knowledge itself. So in the subconscious, so-called subconscious state, when the mind's activity is at its lowest, because consciousness is all-knowing, there are certain things that become known during that period. However, This can happen only with that person whose mind has been controlled to a great extent. And that is why, if the mind is fully controlled and in the consciousness is playing some game in the mind during the sleep or nidra avastha, then it can turn out to be true, because it is Trikala Badita Satya. And the classical example is Tukaram Maharaj never saw his guru. His guru's name was Babaji. Babaji gave him the mantra in the swapna. So his diksha was done in the dream. Why? Because the mind was completely subdued, controlled, chitta vritti nirodha. At that time, when the consciousness was already peeping into the mind, in that sandhikala avastha, Babaji or whatever guru came and he said, Ram Krishna Hari was the mantra. Now, this is how the dreams also. The dreams shall come true only when this is of this, which is called Deva Swapna. Our dreams are not coming true, although we sometimes try to connect it. It's simply because whatever is happening during the Jagruta Avastha is getting replayed there, and that is how we get those dreams like stress for the examination, missing the bus, we are appearing late at the station, the rickshaw is not working, the auto could not take you there. All those are the anxieties working on the mind, which replay during the dream. So it very, very rarely happens that the dream of a normal person is giving a clear-cut clue about what is going to happen. It is supta ichha, supta bhavana, the subtle or the, below the level. There is a constant anusandhana going on in certain things. For example, somebody's daughter is getting married after 3 months. He's constantly worried that I hope all goes well. He would definitely get a dream that suddenly the would-be in-laws have come and said that we want little more money. This was not up to our level. So these kind of dreams come and we say that I hope everything goes right. I had a very bad dream. Never think of the bad or good dreams, because our dreams have no value. Although psychologists like Freud and others, there's a lot of working. The dreams do have a value when you want to psychologically evaluate a person. So all psychiatric cases, there is a dream analysis. In that dream analysis, you try to find out what is thinking happening into the Jagruta Avastha, because a psychiatric patient cannot tell you exactly what is happening inside in mind. So through dreams, his mapping is done. So that is a different story altogether. But as far as quality of dreams, its ability to prophesize is concerned, it is simply a misnomer, because it is nothing else but the interplay of what is happening during our Jagruta Avastha. Those yogis and sadhus who in Jagruta Avastha are constantly thinking of Anusandhana with Ishvara, that also reflects into the dreams, but then that becomes a Deva Swapna. So Charitri Shuddhata, Chitta Shuddhata, and loss of Vikshepa has a lot of bearing on the dreams. That is why, have you ever seen any realized soul coming and talking to you like, I had a dream? Did we see anywhere that Gurudeva ever spoke about a dream that he had? Something, a point to worth ponder for you.
Sanjay ji, just one quick question. I'm actually stuck on the 8th and 9th sentences, which is Viparyaya and Vikalpa. Now, I was thinking the statement Swarup Lakshana, Satchit Anand.
Yes.
I mean, how do you see that? Is it Viparyaya? Is it Vikalp? Because it can be seen that way in some cases. Because first of all, how do you see Swarup Lakshana? Is it Appada or is it something else? And secondly, can it not also fall into Viparyaya and Vikalp?
Viparyaya and Vikalp, the difference is different things. Shabda Jnana Anupati. Vikalp definition, what Patanjali wants, Shabda Jnana. Shabda Jnana means that knowledge which is derived from the world. While this other Jnanam, which you're talking about, Viparyaya, is because of the epistemological basis. That means there is a rope lying in front of me. That rope has been seen by me. I have a jnanam of that. Now I am misinterpreting itself as snake. In case of Atma Tattvam or Satchidananda, so I have not seen it. I have not experienced it. So whatever I say about it is not viparyaya. Viparyaya is when there is a thing existing and it is erroneously interpreted. To erroneously interpret something, something has to be experienced. In case of Atma Tattvam, first of all, I have not experienced it. And I'm trying to make qualities about it. That is why it falls into Shabda Jnana Anupati. Just because I'm able to formulate the words, I'm trying to put them on that which is not yet experienced. So it becomes an vikalpa. You're very right. This question has been discussed threadbare in Vyasa Bhashyam as well as Tattva Vaisharadi. In fact, Vijnana Bhikshu in 15th century who has written this commentary, he's written a Vartika on Vyasa Bhashyam of Patanjali Yoga Sutra. He has taken this subject in detail. Why it is not Viparya? Why would you call it Vikalpa? And the reason what he has given, what I'm telling is not from my side, it is from his explanation that Viparya presupposes an experience of a thing which has been erroneously interpreted. While Vikalpa, there is no experience required. In fact, no experience can be done because there is no such thing existing. For example, Gandharva Nagari, city in the sky. I have words called Gandharva and Nagari, so I can make a word. Shabda Jnana Anupati. Vastu Shunyaha. There is no thing. So existence is completely nullified, yet you can name it. Nama Rupa can be given to it, which is all imaginary, but that's why many times the English word which comes closer to Vikalpa is fantasy. What is a fantasy? Fantasy is imagining something which is not existing. That is fantasy. Vivekananda Maharaj has given a completely different turn to this word called Vikalpa. He says it is verbal delusion. And he has taken it to the thing like even Raga, Dvesha. Vivekananda Maharaj calls it as Vikalpa. Why? He says it has no existence. You are believing in it. That is why if somebody says something to you, you get a ragam. What is the nature of the ragam? Is the rag a thing called rag? Is it existing? Dvesha, is it existing? No. You feel it is existing. So it's a vikalpa, verbal delusion. This is Vivekananda's interpretation. In fact, for the lectures given in New York, he has explained the vikalpa that manner. Could be because the people sitting in front of him were the people who had first time heard the word Sanskrit or whatever. Could be. We don't know the reason. But from the Shastriya Paribhasha, if you look at Vyasa Bhashyam, Tattva Vaisharadi and Vijnana Chakshu, the explanation is very clear. It is not Viparyaya, it is Vikalpa. So Satchit Ananda is my support to understand. If suppose a child asks you a question, what is a PhD? Now the question is the child's repertoire is limited. So I have to use child's word to explain about PhD. So we say, are you studying your book? The elementary book of English? Yes. So same book, but in too many pages. Now, is this the definition of PhD? No. But Vikalpa is used here because that is his limitation. So that is why, because Atma Swarupam, we have no idea. We are not even elementary students there. Vikalpa is the only way by which I can reach there. So, but that being a separate vritti, because it does create a vritti, a thought process in mind. And that is why anything that creates thought has to be classified. So Vikalpa is classified.
Hari Om, Dr. Saib.
Hari
Om. Anil, I just want to ask about the mechanism of vritti. When we look at something, our vritti travels, touches the subject, and then the jnana is happening. This is what I heard. So, and that's how when you focus on somebody, the person get a feeling that somebody is looking at me. This is what the mechanism I was explained sometimes. So something I would like to understand a little more on this.
Hari Om. See, vritti is a reflex arc. There is an arc, reflex arc involved. Senses, Jnanendriya will be the first to interact with this around, because without 5 Jnanendriya, the world is not existing. So let us take example Chakshu, the eyes. When the eye sees something, the first thing what we get to know is what is seen, is it a new thing or old thing? Now that is not the first thing we see. First we see, that's called pure seeing. You're not given any attribute to the seeing. There is a small squarish thing lying there. Even square also you are not thought. There is something lying there, which is called as samanya jnana. Samanya jnana is the effect of consciousness. You come to know that something is lying there. Okay. Now the question is, once that stimulus is brought back to the mind by the chakshu, and the elements are given to the mind to analyze. So the mind starts analyzing. That analyzing mind is basically telling that, okay, what is the shape? How does it look like? Is it similar to something that you saw before? If it is similar to that, how many similar things you saw? I saw a matchbox, I saw a charger, I saw a mobile. The three were of the same size. So three different differential diagnosis is made. And then in these vikalpas, in these alternates, one nishchiti is done. That is done by buddhi. It says, oh, it is mobile phone. Now, till this point, it is pure knowledge. Why? It has just brought me some information in the form of data, which is kind of assimilated and properly put, and then an information is made. Now, data is collected by Jnanendriya, information is made by mind. Till this point, there is no problem at all. All the yogis have this. All Jivan Muktas have this. The problem starts now onwards, the traveling is different. That mobile that is there, if I could have a better quality than that for myself, what has happened? The reaction to the perception has started. Perceiving is not a problem. A reaction to that is called cognizance. Now, cognizance, once you have taken cognizance of a particular thing, you react to that particular thing in the manner your past sanskaras tell you. So if you are a person who is into tamo guna, who is into rajo guna, then accordingly you'll say, I must do something. Main le lunga ye phone, main agle tomorrow I will buy it. What has happened is that thing lying there hasn't done anything. Your mind has acted on it. So that is why a vritti is a reaction given to what is seen. Unless there is a reaction, the vrittis do not come there. That is why Gurudeva, when Vivekananda, he moved all around America, saw new things, saw new exhibitions, Eiffel Tower, everything he saw. What happened in the mind? Nothing. Why? Pancha Mahabhuta. He saw women the way we saw. He saw the girls. He was young. He saw the girls. The girls also made advances. What happened to him? Nothing. Why? A Devi came, a Devi sat. Because consciousness was the principle everywhere. No modifications were allowed to come through perception to cognize in a manner the way we cognize. So that is why vritti, when we see, the vritti jnanam, when we see, is the experience. The word experience is more important. Whatever is lying there, if you experience it, you cognize it and give positive, negative, anukula, pratikula reaction to that, then it becomes experience, and every experience creates a thought. So thought creation is an experience. So this is similarly, this happens till what extent? Even when Bhagavan Ram is in front of you, I saw Bhagavan Ram, chitta vritti ullasit ho jati hai. That is also an experience. वो सोने की चेन है, ये आयरन की चेन है. Both are bad because त्वं त्रिगुणातीतः. This traigunya bhava, even that should not happen. That's a higher stage. So vritti jnanam is nothing else but perception converted into cognizance, leading to reaction of anukula pratikulam, creating an experience. One line is drawn, experience, one experience. Vivekananda calls it, one pebble is thrown into the lake of chitta and the ripple is formed. The ripple never dies down. These ripples, so now we are going to come to smriti in the next session. We will see more about what is smriti, how it leads to these ripples called samskara, samskara leading to habit, habit leading to character formation, how shila is formed, and how to get out of it. That is also described in Smriti. We shall see that in the next session. Hari Om.
Thank you, Sanjay ji. I think.
Hari Om, Sanjay ji.
Sorry, Pradeep ji has a question.
Yeah, Sanjay ji, this pramana, Shabda pramana also is one pramana. So that also has to be rejected in the vritti. I mean,
Yes, yes, yes. It is like this: you're climbing a hill, so you have to take a stick with you till the time you reach the top. After that, throw. That is why not only Shabda Pramana, even Vedas. Even Vedas, I'm making a very bold statement. Even Vedas, why? Because you have all this structure has used only to climb to the peak. After climbing to the peak, why are you carrying the burden with you? Now you will understand the meaning of Kabir Maharaj's very mystical composition. Ram Niranjana Nyara Re, Anjana Sakala Pasara Re. Anjana Brahma, Anjana Inda. Anjana Gopi Sangu Govindu Re. No Gopi, no Govindu. It's a very, very high and the top state. That is why yogi is considered most revered even by the gods. Yasya anta na vidu sura suragana. Devaya tasmai namaha. Even the gods are propitiating. Now we understand where Gurudeva is. Beyond gods, Gurudeva is godlike, would be perhaps making him small. He is beyond that. That is why yogi is the highest ideal. I belong to the brand of sannyasis, the ancient tradition of India. That is how Vivekananda himself introduced at the Parliament conference, because that is the highest avastha. There's nothing beyond that. That is why all this knowledge, pramana, shabda, agama, veda, everything, till the time we are into baddha avastha, jiva avastha, all of them are priceless. Even Guru. Why? At that state, there is no Guru, there is no Shishya. Why? Guru Shishya become Sahajya Mukti. Only one has to remain, Brahman. When Atma Tattva or Brahma, Parabrahma is there, how can there be the second? So how the Parabrahma can feel that there is Veda and there is this thing? That is all into the relatively lower stage. That doesn't mean that there is no importance of everything. Agama is the most important. Shabda Pramana is the most important Pramana. Shraddha is the most important thing. Agreed. But that is till the journey is there. One whose journey has ended, what is the use of a stick to him? Hari.